So, if you're running a business, you're always buying things to help it grow, right? A new vehicle, a new computer. But what if I told you that new asset isn't just an expense? It's actually a tax saving opportunity waiting to happen. Today, we're going to break down one of the most powerful tools for any business owner: capital allowances. Let's dive in. Okay, let's imagine this. You've just made a big move. You've invested 120,000 ringgit in a brand new lorry for your business. This is awesome. But now, as you're getting your accounts in order, a really important question pops up. And here's the catch. Unlike your monthly rent or utility bills, you can't just subtract that full $120,000 from your profits in one go. No way. It would totally throw off your books for the year. So how on earth does the tax system handle these big, long-lasting purchases? Well, the answer is a little something called capital allowances. You can think of it as the government's official system for saying, hey, we get it. Your expensive stuff gets old and worn out over time. It's their way of letting you spread out the cost of those major assets. So what it really boils down to is this. Capital allowance is basically the tax world's version of depreciation. You see, in your accounting books, you've got depreciation showing an asset losing value. Well, on your tax return, you use capital allowances to do a very similar thing. It helps you write off the cost over a few years, which, in turn, lowers your taxable income. Now, hold on, you can't just claim this on everything. There are 4 key conditions you've got to meet. It's pretty straightforward. First, you had to have actually spent money on a qualifying asset. Second, it's got to be yours. You have to be the legal owner. Third, and this one's a biggie, the asset must be used for your business, not for your personal weekend trips. And finally, you have to be actively running that business. Simple enough, right? Okay, enough with the theory. Let's make this real. We're going to go back to that $120,000 lorry and track exactly how these allowances get calculated year by year. So here's the magic formula. The allowance is split into 2 parts. In the very first year you own the asset, you get a special one-time bonus called the initial allowance, or IA. Plus, you get your regular annual allowance, the AA. Then, from the second year onwards, you just claim that annual allowance until the asset's value is all written down.
All right, let's run the numbers. We start with the lorry's original cost, which is 120,000 ringgit. This is our starting point.
Now, in year 1, we get that special welcome bonus, the initial allowance. For a lorry like this, the rate is 20%. So, boom, right away we get to deduct 24,000 ringgit. But wait, there's more in year 1. We also get to claim the annual allowance. For a lorry, that's another 20%, which is another RM 24,000. So in total, we've claimed a massive RM $48,000 in the very first year. Not bad at all. So after we subtract those first-year allowances, the remaining value of our lorry for tax purposes is down to 72,000 ringgit. This is what the tax folks call its residual expenditure. But the tax savings don't stop there. Remember, that initial allowance was a one-time deal. From year 2 onwards, we just keep claiming that steady annual allowance. Let's see what that looks like. So, moving into year 2, it's simple. We just apply that 20% annual allowance again, taking another RM $24,000 off the original cost. And just like that, after only 2 years, the lorry's tax value has dropped all the way to RM 48,000. You just keep doing this each year, chipping away at that value and reducing your taxable profit until it's all claimed. Of course, your business is probably more than just lorries, right? And the tax rules get this. They know that a laptop doesn't have the same lifespan as heavy machinery, so the allowance rates are different for different types of assets. Okay, this table is super important, so pay attention. You can see our lorry right there at the top under heavy machinery. It gets a great 20% and 20% rate. But look at office equipment and furniture. The annual rate drops to 10%. And then check out ICT equipment and software, a whopping 40% initial allowance. This is basically the government giving you a massive incentive to invest in technology for your business. Now, you probably noticed that term plant and machinery a lot, and you're likely thinking, a factory, right? Well, in the weird world of tax law, it's not that simple. The definition has been shaped by some really strange court cases. For instance, get this. A court decided a horse used for business is a plant, but a human body, nope, not a plant. A functional swimming pool for a business, that's a plant. A fancy ceiling that's just for decoration, not a plant. It all comes down to what the item does for the business, not just what it is.
So, besides the standard rates, there are some pretty cool special rules and shortcuts you really need to know about. Think of these as the cheat codes to really maximize your claims.
100%. How does that sound? What if I told you that for certain assets, you could claim 100% of the cost, the entire thing, in the very first year?
Well, you can. It's a special rule for small value assets. Here's the deal. For any qualifying item that costs 2,000 ringgits or less, we're talking printers, office chairs, phones, that kind of stuff, you can write off the full 100% in the year you buy it. Now, for bigger companies, there's an RM $20,000 yearly cap on this. But, and this is the best part for all you small and medium enterprises out there, that cap, it doesn't apply to you at all.
All right, let's do a lightning round of 3 other key rules. First, disposal. This is just what happens when you sell an asset. The tax office will square things up, and you might get one last deduction or have to pay a little tax. Second, unabsorbed allowances. Sounds technical, but it just means if your claims are bigger than your profits one year, you don't lose them. You can carry them forward to lower your tax bill in future years. And finally, temporary disuse. This one's cool. Even if a machine is sitting idle, as long as you're maintaining it and it's ready to work, you can still claim allowances on it.
So, at the end of the day, capital allowances aren't just some boring accounting chore. They are a genuinely powerful strategic tool that you can use to manage your cash flow and seriously lower your tax bill. Look, your assets are out there working hard for your business every single day. So the real question you need to ask yourself is this: are your allowances working just as hard for you?